All right, it's our favorite time of the week. Rapid fire fantasy football news and notes with Ricky Larson, Lucky Shots Media. I've been getting a lot of great feedback about this weekly segment we do. So, Ricky, always a pleasure to get you on. Any thoughts from week 2 to get us started?
Check out my fantasy podcast that I put out on Tuesday. I've got a lot of thoughts. Okay.
Yes.
I got on my soapbox. I ranted about a few players. You know, Tom Brady pissing me off. Javonte Williams, he's not pissing me off. The coaching staff is pissing me off. He should be a guy that's absolutely killing it in fantasy. He's not so far. Brandon Cooks, a guy that is getting the targets, just not making things happen for you on fantasy. And then Kyle Pitts. Maybe we'll get into him a little later, but why the hell is he only getting 2 catches a week for 19 yards and 3.5 fantasy points? Fucking excuse me. Irritating. And the head coach really pissed me off with the quote he had this week. But
yeah, Arthur Smith, I'm glad to leave that in my past. Yeah, it looks like they just got 2 plays in the playbook for him, a couple of button hooks, and that's always good for identical lines in week 1 and week 2. All right, so last week we were replacing Dak. This week, people are replacing Lance. How do we do it?
Well, you see, you're okay, I think, to go with Jimmy G there, because let's be honest, there's not a lot on the waiver wire for quarterbacks, especially in, say, a 12-team league. You have every team rostering 1 quarterback, some of them even 2. It's kind of tough. And you don't necessarily want to go out and trade for a mid-level quarterback.
Yeah.
So the obvious idea is to go pick up Jimmy G. You know what you're going to get out of him. But if you have the wiggle room, you could go try to trade for other people, or you could just say, fuck it, go on the waiver wire and pick up Joe Flacco, who had nearly 40 points last week.
That's who I wrote down. Is Flacco the guy? He's like, what, a top 10 fantasy, or he's top 10 statistical quarterback right now.
Yeah. And I mean, the Jets came out last week and said, we're not going to put Trey Lance on the brain. Zach Wilson in until he's 110%. Well, in my mind, you can't ever be 110%. You can't go over 100. So it looks like Joe Flacco is going to be the starter for the indefinite future. At the very least, you'll get another few weeks out of him before you need to make other movement. But you're kind of in a shit spot right now if Trey Lance was your starter. So
yeah,
it doesn't hurt to try to go Joe Flacco.
And, he just got him a win, so maybe they let Zach Wilson rest up even more. Who knows? Maybe he's out of a job. Flacco looking better than Matt Ryan all of a sudden. All right, do we owe Tua an apology or not? What's going on in Miami?
I don't want to eat my words yet. He's got a real tough matchup this week. We talked about it on my podcast. Hell of a week. Let's be honest, nearly 500 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Keep in mind, he did throw 2 picks. So you got to fade a little bit. And 4 of his touchdowns were in the fourth quarter. It's kind of tough. And this week, going up against Buffalo, I don't think it's going to be another 6 touchdown, 500-yard game. I think it's going to be tough sledding for him. If he puts up a decent stat line against Buffalo, then I will eat my words next week. But I'm not ready to eat my words yet. To still a little lower for me, but
I was with you and kind of doubting him, and I'm on the precipice. I don't know. He showed me a little bit something. I think Tyreek Hill has really helped. It's better than Devontae Parker. I'll tell you that much.
Let's be honest. It wasn't just Tyreek Hill last week either. It was Jalen Waddle. So they've got. Say Russell Wilson was on the Dolphins, say even Matt Ryan went to the Dolphins, I'd be a little higher on them with those 2 receivers. Those are 2 great receivers. And let's not forget about Mike Gazicki. Okay.
He came back.
A stud tight end. They've got all the weapons around him. It's just the question of, can Tua be that guy? He showed last week that he is a guy to keep an eye on.
Right.
But I want to see this week if he is the guy.
Yep, just one game pretty much. And as you said, it was basically, it was a Ravens collapse. There was one throw where it was completely blown coverage too, Tyreek Hill, when he's getting doubled, that frees up Waddle. That's an interesting pairing. And again, the weapons certainly helping there. Well, you just mentioned them. This is a two-part question with kind of two quarterbacks to kind of answer for. Bigger disappointment between the two, and then who are you more worried about going forward? Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins?
I would say Russell Wilson is who I'm more concerned about because the coaching staff doesn't know how to run an offense, apparently. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Really pisses me off. They've got all the talent in the world, yet we can't run offense. Why? Yeah. At least with Kirk Cousins, I shared something on Facebook that said he threw a couple picks this week just to show everybody, hey, remember, I am Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, he's, a good quarterback in fantasy because he can get a lot of garbage time. If they're not in garbage time, he's got the best wide receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson. So I would be more concerned about Russell Wilson. I'm not ready to fade Kirk. Yeah, it was a tough game, but he only scored 3 less than Russell Wilson this week, and he had a real good week 1. So, I think you're still okay with Kirk, but definitely be worried about Russell Wilson just because I don't know when this offense is going to finally get it figured out.
These guys square off against each other. You just touched on them. Brady or Rodgers?
Who do I like more?
More disappointed? Who are you more worried about?
Well, I'm more disappointed in Tom Brady because I drafted him finally, and this offense can't find their feet. Neither can Green Bay, but you expected more out of the Tampa Bay offense. The way they've looked the last, 2 years with Brady, the absolute just domination from that offense. And then you go into this year and it looks like kind of back when the Broncos had their final season with Peyton Manning. The fucking quarterback couldn't get it done and the defense had to carry. Yep. That's what it's starting to look like with Tom Brady. I'm really hoping they figure it out. Yes, they do have a lot of injuries, a suspension now at wide receiver. So a lot of those weapons aren't there. Eventually, probably it'll look a little better, but I'm definitely more concerned about Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers, he looked good last week, all that being against the Bears, but it finally looked like some sort of rhythm started. So at least there you saw a rhythm start. You still haven't seen anything start for Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, it has been a dud for 2 veteran quarterbacks, 2 MVP quarterbacks. All right, we'll go start him or sit him here. James Robinson.
I think you're still okay to start him this week. He's another guy who I praised him in my fantasy show. He's outperforming not only people's expectations, but his backfield mate and Travis Etienne that the organization is so high on. There was no reason to doubt James Robinson after his rookie year. Yep. He went out there and did his thing, was one of the top running backs, probably the best player on your team at that point. You go out and you get Travis Etienne. That makes no sense. I get it's a league where you want multiple running backs on your squad, but I don't get it. Travis Etienne went down last year. James Robinson was still a guy that you could put in and he'd get you points. So James Robinson definitely would be who I go with there.
Here's a guy that's confusing me at an all right week 1, week 2. Now I'm starting to question mark where his pecking order is at. Chase Edmonds, start him or sit him?
This week I'd sit him just for the fact of it's Buffalo. You're not going to get an accurate reading out of any of those running backs. He's listed as the starter. Last week, that wasn't necessarily the case. You looked more behind Raheem Mostert, which is the 2 backs that I thought you would have to juggle between with Miami. But I would sit him this week. For the season, you still got to wait and kind of see. I would just not play any back from Miami ever. Right. But if you are stuck between those 2, I would sit Edmonds this week.
I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. I think I sat him over Garrett Wilson, who I'm going to throw up
Oh,
there. And yeah, hope he pops off again. All right, let's pick between two guys here as well. Ricky Larson, Lucky Shots Media. Check him out. We just had our Lucky Bets podcast, which we do every week. We compete in DFS, prop bets, pick them, and break down the lines, of course. All right. We talked about this on your show. Pollard or Zeke?
So I'm just going to mirror what I said on our show. Pollard is just the guy.
Yeah.
Zeke, he hasn't gotten it done last year. He was hurt the year before for a little bit. This year, he's not outpacing Pollard at all. I think the only reason that the Cowboys haven't shifted away from Zeke is because they paid him all that money. They want to get their money's worth, but Pollard is just showing you need to get over that guy. He's old news. I'm here now. I'm the better running back. I'll take Pollard 10 days out of 10 against Zeke.
Christian Kirk or Curtis Samuel?
Oh, well, that's easy for me. Curtis Samuel. Yeah, Christian Kirk's had some good weeks. I think there's a fall off this week. I actually put him in my hate category for my fantasy show this week, going up against the Chargers. Chargers against Kansas City. They didn't allow more than 3 catches to a wide receiver, and they only allowed 1 touchdown, and it was to some like bum ass that got 1 catch. Yep. So I'm going to fade Christian Kirk this week, and Curtis Samuel has given us back-to-back solid 20-point fantasy weeks. The only problem with him is you do still have Terry McLaurin, who's obviously the best receiver on the team. He's yet to get going. Jahan Dotson has come on and been like, hey, I'm a guy too. So that's the only trepidation you should have between the two. But Curtis Samuel has the higher floor, I believe, for this week, and definitely the higher ceiling.
I made a cardinal sin last week where I was up like 30-35. I had Thielen and my opponent had Jalen Hurts and, the Buffalo Bills defense. I lost by 7. Adam Thielen, if he had a touchdown, it looked like he might have had that garbage time touchdown. And then Kirk Cousins said, you know what, I want to go home. And they left the field. Adam Thielen or Noah Brown from Dallas.
Well, that one's easy too, because I've been fading Thielen since the beginning of the season. He's proving me right so far. And how about Noah Brown? Yeah. He's going out there, and I mean, you had all these different receivers talking about going into the season rookie-wise. I don't remember hearing much of anything about Noah Brown, and he's going out there, and he's honestly staying on pace with CeeDee Lamb. They're double covering CeeDee Lamb. They're pretty much taking him out of the game for the Cowboys, and Noah Brown's the guy that they're turning to. I really like Noah Brown. He's somebody I went and picked up off waivers for most of my leagues this week. I don't know if it's going to continue, but there's that higher ceiling there for sure.
I just saw him on the waiver wire left over today. I was like, you know what? I'm picking him up. I was like, I got to do it.
Yeah, don't leave that guy.
Right. He's the guy I go to for fantasy football advice. You should as well. Ricky Larson, Lucky Shots Media. Grade my trade. I just made it today. I think you're going to like it, but I don't know. We'll see. I was waiting to get roasted. The guy I made the trade with was waiting to get roasted. I'll have to check the comments after here for our league. I am trading Michael Pittman Jr. and Keenan Allen for Jamar Chase. Did I get hosed?
So here's the thing. If Pittman Jr. is healthy, I don't mind it for the other guy. For you, I do like Jamar Chase. He's on my team. He was my number 1 overall pick in the league. So I do like him, and I think this is a bounce back week. But we've seen that this Cincinnati offense has trouble protecting Joe Burrow. They have I want to say that I like it, but if Pittman ends up being healthy for the rest of the year, and it's going to be a tough pill to swallow, especially when he gets a decent week and Chase has another down week like this week where Cincinnati can't move the ball. The higher ceiling, though, is definitely with Chase because he can get those long touchdowns. He can get 10 catches for 200 yards and a couple scores. So honestly, I think you both made out pretty even there, especially if Pittman misses a couple more weeks.
And that, maybe I jumped the gun because both guys were injured this past week. Allen, you and I have been high on Pittman and kind of a little bit selling on Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's a guy I've been loving like the last decade, but it's like kind of like Thielen. As he's getting older, his role is diminishing and his ability to even just rake in points is diminishing with it too. So, I mean, it was like the guy I traded with had to fill out his roster a little bit more. I wanted another kind of head honcho because now I've got Kupp, Chase, Herbert, and then we're kind of so I got Clyde Edwards, Michael Carter, Thielen, who's still in my goddamn lineup, and Garrett Wilson. So, we're seeing.
I don't mind that at all. And the thing with Keenan Allen too is I don't think his role really is diminishing, but he's got a hamstring injury.
Yeah, injury prone.
That hangs around for the entire year. Doesn't matter if he comes back, it's gonna be there. I mean, we got to just look at every past season. Somebody who's got a hamstring injury, they don't just miss the first couple games that they're out. They end up missing a few more games down the line.
Re-aggravate.
And Keenan Allen is a guy even last year who was he starting? Was he hurt? Up to game time decisions for him. So when he's in, I don't think his role is going to diminish much, but it's the fact of you're not going to get a full season out of him, even if he comes back this week. So he's one that I'm okay if you can deal for a guy like Jamar Chase. It's Michael Pittman that I'm a little weary on.
Hey, quadriceps too. Maybe that's a lingering issue because that was a surprise too. It's like, wait a second, Thursday he's out. It's like, huh?
Yeah, both of us even had him in our DFS lineups.
Right.
So that was a bit of a wash. So he's a guy that I'm real excited for.
Yeah.
And hopefully he doesn't play this week either. Like give him a few weeks to let that quad really just strengthen back up, not have any problems, and then get him back out on the field. So for you, especially if both those guys miss a significant amount of time, like 2 to 3 weeks, you've got Chase for 2 to 3 weeks. So I do like it.
Yeah, interesting to say the least. Always great to get the fantasy football advice from Ricky Larson, Lucky Shots Media. Ricky, appreciate it. Let's enjoy some football, and we'll talk to you again next week. Check out his stuff. I hopped on Lucky Bets this week, and he also has got his fantasy football show as well. Appreciate it, my man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.